guys, today I am working on the grab bag Kohler. As you can see, the block is completely dry cleaned. I haven't put this through the parts washer yet, but I spent about an hour, probably an hour and a quarter, just scraping all that dirt and filth out of everything. All the fins are clean all the way around. So it's ready to be put through the parts washer. Before I do that though, I am gonna clean the bore with some brake cleaner and paper towels and hone it. That way when I put it through the parts washer, it will be just ready to pretty much be assembled. All of this stuff is what came out of the fins. I thought I would just show you. Obviously this is a little piece of oil pan gasket right there, but in general, all of that was packed into the fins and down between the intake, you know, down in here, all around here with the valve, where the valve stem comes through the guide itself, and then the intake. But it's all cleaned out. As you can see, the bore stock style, you know, before I do anything to it, it's not in bad shape. It's glazed over. There's very little ridge. There is a very, very slight ridge. You can just barely feel it. And it's just on the thrust sides, the front of the bore, the back of the bore. Actually, the back of the bore, you can't even feel anything. There's just a slight little ridge right here, but nothing of material for me. The valve seats, as you can see, they're in real good shape. I did not cut these, and I'm not gonna cut them. I'm gonna just leave them alone and go ahead and just lap the valves in real good. I did run my Dremel tool through the ports. If I have a little bit of, I think I took some video of that. If I did, I'll put that in here and probably a little picture. But overall, the block is all set to be honed and then put through the parts washer and then in final cleaned. So we're right there. I have the piston and the rod, the used piston and rod. I did tighten down the bolts. I didn't torque them, but I just hand tightened them down with the 1/4-inch wrench, and enough to where if there was some oil between the cap and the rod, it oozed out. You can see that. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and measure the diameter of this from the base to the center of the rod to the center of the cap, and see where we are with that. And from there, I'm going to disassemble that. I actually found another pin from just a loose pin from in that parts bucket I had in the last video. So I'm going to swap the pin and the clips only because I can say it's got a different pin and different clips from a different motor on the piston, on the rod. So I'll go and dig that up. But for right now, let's measure this up. Okay, measured up the bore of the rod end and measured up the pin on the crank. I did torque these bolts down 11 foot-pounds on the basis that my initial measurements looked kind of funky. So I was like, oh, I guess I'm gonna have to torque it. So I did torque I got the torque wrench over there. So I did go ahead and torque those bolts down. I measured it in a number of different areas, staying away from the cap ends as well as the oil hole, so we wouldn't get any more weird measurements. When I measured the crank, top to bottom measurement, and then I'll just, for this purpose's sake, front to back. The measurements on the rod in a couple places was 935, 935. The crank measured out 932 and 931, so I took the biggest measurement, 932 and 935. I kind of just discounted that extra five thousandths of an inch, I guess you'd say. So we have a clearance on average of about 3 thousandths. If we go to the book and we take connecting rod to crank pin running clearance, it's supposed to be 1 to 2.5 thousandths. So we're definitely on the high side, and we would expect that with some worn parts. But two things: one, it's not worn enough where I'm going to go putting a new rod in this motor. We're going to run this rod. The crank itself is not as nice as I had remembered, just like anything else, there's no scores, but there's definitely some polishing, some weird polishing on it, but in any event, doesn't matter. So with that being said, we are going to run these parts. I'm going to get them set up to run through the parts washer with the block. The bore has been honed. It came out real good. I mean, I probably could have had a little bit more attention to detail, to be honest with you, but in general, it has been honed. There's only one little light score. I don't know exactly where it is. It's almost invisible, but all right, let me get the other parts and let's get this stuff clean. Field strip the piston assembly. Piston looks real good. I just ran the top of the piston on a piece of Scotch-Brite to clean it up initially. The ring lands all look good. There doesn't appear to be anything. Maybe there's something right there, but whatever. Skirt is a little bit scraped up, but again, used piston. Nothing visual that would say the piston is bad, so we'll obviously reuse that. The rod that we measured is here, the bearing area of the rod itself. You know, it's used. There's nothing you can do about it, so got that. Same with the cap. The cap is, you know, it's got marks on it, but it is what it is. Bolts for the rod. Here's the bolt retainer. This one's real chewed up. I have another one that's not quite as bad, so we'll swap that. Here's the pin. The pin, actually, I had to take it out with a hammer. Something was up with that. I had to use a socket in my little baby hammer to knock the pin out. And when I run my hand over it, I can feel like a really weird little blip, like right there, right where that mark is. So I have another used pin in the shed. I'm going to go out there and get that pin, see the condition of that. Plus I have the other piston. I might pull that pin out and see which one is, out of the three, which one is the best visual pin, and we'll put that in. So more to come on that. Those are the clips, the wrist pin clips. We'll just reuse those. Those are fine. Crankshaft has been sanded and is ready to go through the parts washer, so we're all set there. So I got and then I have an oil pan. I went out to the shed and I found an oil pan. I know in my parts video I didn't show that I had an oil pan, but I do have an oil pan. It's right here. It's black, so it's gonna meet the requirements of a plaid motor. So need to scrape that down, run it through the parts washer. Back in the parts bin here, I had another wrist pin in here, but I can't. It must be in my other box. But here's a piston. This is the other piston. I'm going to bring this into the garage. We'll remove the wrist pin from that. I have the point sets. I'm just going to leave them in here for now. I'm a little ways away from that. One thing I did do is, this is the second camshaft and pin. I did swap the pin. The pin that was in this particular camshaft was in better shape. This is the other pin. There's a burr on it, so I decided not to use that one. But all this stuff in here, I'm gonna have to go through the other box for the other. Okay, looking over the pins. This is the pin that came out of the piston that I decided to use, and you can definitely feel a little ridge on this pin right there. This is the pin from the piston that I just took out of the shed, and my God, there's like a wear mark in this pin that's unbelievable. So this one is clearly junk. This is the junk rod I wasn't going to use. And this is the pin that I had set aside. These are all the parts I'm going to use in the motor, but this pin itself is real nice. It feels real good. It does have a couple witness marks in it, but overall, this is a good part. It's going off into the parts washer, as well as we're going to clean these. These are the clips from this piston. We'll pick the two out of the four that I have that's the best. All right, all the parts or the bulk of the parts have been run through the parts washer. Everything is, I'd say 80% clean. There's like a 20% dirt ratio that I got to get rid of. But my plan is, or what I always do, is I'm going to go ahead and spray all this stuff down with brake cleaner, each and every single part. Make sure it's squeaky clean, blow it off with air. I'm not going to do that today. I'll probably do that tomorrow, although it's supposed to be really cold. So you can see piston, crank bearings. I got like two sets of rod bolts. So we'll pick and choose out of that. I think I have like 8 wrist pin clips. Pick 2 of those. The seals, I ran the seals through the parts washer. This is breather and points covers, points rod. There's the springs, the valve springs. I didn't run these through, but I will. I'll brake clean the valves off. Then I'm going to lap them in. The rod's all clean. Just needs to be sprayed with some brake cleaner and wiped down. The head is all cleaned up. Just needs to. I'll get all the carbon off it and I'll surface it real quick just to make sure it's semi-flat. Cam pin, the cam, the crank. Oh, the lifters. You can see here I have 2 different lifters. They came from 2 different motors. This one here is a little thicker than that one, so you can, right off the bat, you can see that they're 2 different lifters. So they're mismatched lifters. The block is right here. The block is steaming off because my parts washer fluid is just filled with, it's called parts washer, but it's more like parts dirt with liquid. So it's filled with I mean, I've had that parts washer maybe 20, 25 years, and it hasn't really been cleaned. The sludge at the bottom of it must be at least 2 or 3 inches thick. So, and over the years, I've put diesel in it. I've put paint thinner. I've mineral spirits. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So it's really not a parts washer, but it gets the bulk of the mess off it. And then I just heat it up with my torch just to kind of cook off all of that crap. Again, I will take brake cleaner and spray this all down, wipe it all out, blow it all off with air. It'll be super, make sure it's super clean. The hone in the bore looks mint. I can't see it from this angle, but you can definitely see it from that angle. So the grab bag Kohler, the bulk of the parts are clean and ready to go. I do have to end gap the rings and lap the valves, but that's all for another video. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you find this interesting, or you're going to say to yourself, this thing is going to blow up for sure. Well, we'll find out. So please, thank you for all your, please, thank you. That didn't sound right. Well, please like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to see what happens with the grab bag Kohler, ring the bell so you know when the next video comes up. And as always, thank you very much for your viewership, and you have a great day.